Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Robbins, and welcome to LPLE from Dialogue FM. We're the podcast that lets you practice listening in English. We speak English slowly and clearly so that you can follow along and understand native English speakers more easily. I'm excited to help you improve your English listening skill, as well as help you learn new vocabulary, grammar, and idioms commonly heard in conversations among native English speakers. If you want to practice listening in English, then we invite you to join our conversation. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jesse.
As we're recording this, we are getting very close to the end of 2016. Now, this has been a very interesting year.
It certainly has.
But it's also ending, which is great. Now, when does your classes end?
My classes have finished. Not all my grades are in, but I can relax now for almost 3 weeks.
That's fantastic. Now, I'm very curious. A couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that you're going to spend some of your vacation reading, catching up on books, sitting in your favorite chair, and just reading. I'd love to learn about the kinds of books that you're going to read over these next few weeks during your vacation.
Well, to a certain extent, I don't know yet. I just know that I have seen a few books under the Christmas tree. I've felt the packages, and I know there are books there. My friends, my family know that I am interested in any book having to do with France, whether it's fiction or very frivolous books about fashion or food or history, anything about France, I'm always delighted to receive a book about. And currently I'm reading a book about a New Yorker who always dreamed of living in Paris, who got the opportunity to do it. And it's called My Part-Time Paris Life. And I'm reading that right now with a lot of pleasure. Sometimes I read mysteries. I absolutely love mysteries, especially mysteries written by Irish and English authors. But I love any mystery that's set in an interesting place. So I love mysteries by Donna Leon, who writes about a detective who lives in Venice, and she brings Venice to life in an amazing way. Unfortunately, she produces one book every year, and it's in the spring, and I am all caught up. So no Christmas reading of Donna Leon.
You mentioned that you typically read mystery books written by Irish or English authors. That's very specific. Is there a reason why you seek out authors who come from those places?
I think it could be, particularly in the case of England, I think it could be that the genre is so well developed there. British mysteries are well known and they've been being written for decades. I suppose that's maybe for a century, at least. I'm not sure that's true of American detective writing or mystery writing. I also think that I love reading British writers because it's my language, of course, but not quite. The language is just enough different to wake me up and make me laugh or make me interested. The use of vocabulary, the turn of phrase. It's just fun. And also, British humor is a little different from American. Extremely hard to put your finger on and describe the difference. But English characters, the humor that comes across, it's like taking a small vacation outside of the country. I think that's my main reason.
One of the more traditional and well-known and famous series of mystery novels that are set in England is, of course, Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
Right? Have you read those books?
Not all, but many, yes. And the atmosphere is part of what I love about English writers. And you're right, that he wrote in the 1880s, didn't he? So there's a long, long tradition of mystery writing.
After I watched the BBC version of the new Sherlock, well, actually, even before that, I was watching the movies made by Robert Downey Jr., who's the main actor.
Yes.
And Jude Law. So there was a couple of movies that were very famous. And then after that, the BBC version made their own version of Sherlock with 3 seasons. Fantastic. I was interested in the stories enough to go back and read the original books.
Ah.
And I've made it through about 30% of the books. They're short stories, but as you noted, they're fascinating. They're absolutely captivating. The situation, the descriptions, everything about how those books were written is so much fun to read.
I agree. And you do feel as though you've been transported in time. There's the relationship between Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes is very interesting and probably not too unusual for that period. That's interesting. The atmosphere of the streets and the horses going by, it's all interesting, very culturally interesting and historically interesting as well.
For the next few weeks, I have a little bit of reading of my own that I'm excited to do. Now, to be very honest, I don't read much. It's not that I dislike reading. I do. I do enjoy reading. I feel as though I'm pretty selective. Also, I have to make time in my day to read. It has to become a part of my schedule.
Yes.
So throughout the year, admittedly, it's not a part of my schedule. Now that I have this time where much of my work is slowing down, I want to give myself a chance to do more reading, particularly reading books related to my work. Now, to say that, I realize it sounds boring. Wow, your work is slowing down, and now you're going to read about your work. However, these books, and one in particular, is actually going to be very helpful in improving my thought process.
What's this? I'm curious.
There's a very famous book called The Lean Startup. So first, it's worth mentioning that I work for 2 startup companies. Very, very young. They were just created earlier this year. So we're going on our 1-year anniversary. These companies are still very small and young. So the mentality that the founders should have when growing their business is going to be different than maybe working for a larger company where things are much more established. Operations are much more established. Marketing, finance, accounting, product development, these things are already well established. However, in a smaller company, there's so many new things. This book, as I'm reading it now, is helping the reader understand what are the smarter and more effective ways to grow your small business in ways that are simple and easy to execute, easy to do, easy to manage. Yeah. What I'm excited about the most is after reading this book, I'm ready to start 2017 with a new mindset, a new way of thinking about my two companies, specifically, and perhaps even more importantly, about business in general. The next book I want to read after reading The Lean Startup is called From Zero to One. Now, it's also a book about entrepreneurship and starting your own company. It takes a different perspective. It's written by someone who is very famous, Peter Thiel, or infamous, depending on how we want to look at him right now in relation to politics. But nevertheless, he has written his experiences being an entrepreneur. Both this book, The Lean Startup, and From Zero to One were highly recommended by friends when they found out that I was creating my own company.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So right now, I'm going to take the time to finally read that. If I can make reading more a part of my daily routine, then I'm excited to go into other books for leisure. Going back to finish the rest of the Sherlock Holmes series I'm really excited about that. Also, there's one book in Vietnamese and one book in Japanese that I have on my desk right now that I've been meaning to get to for half a year.
Are they fiction or?
They're fiction. Yeah, they're fiction. One, the Vietnamese book is written by a very famous Vietnamese author. I bought a few of his books before coming back to America because I felt that would be a good chance to continue practice reading. The Japanese book is a very, I don't want to say very old, but a well-known book. Think of something like The Catcher in the Rye, that kind of classic.
Oh my.
It's called I Am a Cat. It's called I Am a Cat. And the book is written from the perspective of a cat. However, the book itself is thick and densely written. So much so that my Japanese friends are surprised and they're warning me to be careful about that book because it is not modern day Japanese that's being used. Yeah. So it's as if an ESL student were learning English and then decided to read
Moby Dick or something like that.
Exactly.
So. Are you going to cheat a little and get an English translation?
No, I'm not. So that's a good question. I'm not going to get the English translation. It's going to take me a long time to read. So we talked about expectations. I'm setting my expectations very low when I read these books. I know that there's going to be many words I don't understand. But that's okay. That's part of the learning process.
Yes.
So I'm excited for some winter reading. I look forward
some
to
inspiration, I think, for you.
It's a really good point.
To start the new year. You've given me an idea or two.
Well, there you go. I'm excited to hear about your reading in the new year. That will be fun, and I'm excited to share with you some of the things I learned from my books as well.
I'll be eager to hear.
Thank you for listening to this episode of LPLE. Let's practice listening in English from Dialogue FM. Subscribe to LPLE on iTunes to hear the latest episodes, or listen to past episodes on our website, dialogue.fm. That's dialog.fm. If you have questions or comments about English, or if you would like for us to use a word, grammar, or idiom in our conversation so you can learn how to use it correctly, we would love to hear from you on Twitter at dialogue.fm or Facebook at facebook.com/dialoguefm.